Welcome to the WOW Empress Codes Intentional Journal Readings, where it's all about truly aligning with your Dominion destiny. And it is all about that alignment for this life phase and really unlocking your life codes. And this is going to help you to move forward in the present. Now, my motto that I always share is that your new now destiny codes aren't found in the stars or in the cards. They're found in the life codes. And one of the things I do before we begin these types of sessions is I like to provide a preface that is really about helping others to understand that they can decode and recode their lives and really start to align with the highest level of their divine destiny trajectories using a practice of intentional journaling. And this process really helps to provide prompts and triggers. And this is designed to help individuals extract their unique divine encoding and to bring forth their own unique information. And from there, they can start really designing their true life's design for this phase and this trajectory. So I am the WOW Empress AliNICOLE WOW, and once again, I am delighted to have my STAR Queen Celebrity-preneur Protégé, Gina Gardiner, and she's joining me for this intentional journal reading segment. And we're going to be featuring several of our individual and co-authored intentional journal style publications. And we have several others because we're going to be present and see which ones come up for the reading today. Now, we do have a core theme that we're going to focus on, and it is shifting how you soar as an empath. And even though we're going to be talking mainly about empaths, this really can pertain to anyone for sure, because we're at a time where people are having to make shifts and take new approaches to how they're actually launching their lives and their dreams. And so we want to be mindful during this particular segment here that having an open mind so that you can evolve and expand for sure, so that you can make sure that you are, as you're launching accurately. And so we're going to talk about that today, but also we'll have some other core themes that could possibly develop. So we're going to be present for that. So Gina, as always, thank you for joining me.
Hello there, and thank you very much for having me be part of this. It's a huge privilege and I learned so much, so I'm hugely grateful. Thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome. I love when we get together to do, these types of sessions because they are really, really important. And we always see how the divinity of all things kind of unfold during these times. So, really excited that we get to share these types of experiences with the public so that they can benefit also, at the highest levels. So definitely want to get started. So something I also want to mention is that Gina's going to be holding up in just a moment the journals that we are going to be featuring for our core topic today. And then, as I mentioned, that there are other journals that we have, ones that we've individually done and our co-authored ones. And so as we're present to see which ones come up, we are going to be focusing primarily, again, on the empathic journey. But as I mentioned, this really pertains to any and everyone. So Gina, before we feature the main publications, do you have anything you'd like to open up with as it relates to our topic today?
Just to say to people, whatever you, wherever you've got to, whatever you believe, however powerful you feel the work that you're doing is, I would say to you, recognize that it's rather like an iceberg and that you're probably just showing the tip of the iceberg, and that this work, this opportunity is designed to help you quite literally expand, explode your capacity make a difference, to be the leader of your own life. And so be open-minded and engage fully, because you're in for an interesting ride.
Interesting indeed, for sure. That was perfect, Gina. Perfect. Okay. And of course, I co-sign with everything that you said. So let's go ahead and feature the main two journals that we want to showcase. We have others, of course, but since we're talking about soaring, we have a group that we're going to show, but we want to bring forth the two that pertain to the soaring aspect. So we have your publication, Soaring to New Heights as an Empath. And yes, and if you could give us that subtitle as well, please.
It is an intentional journal for powerful empaths who are ready to take things to the next level.
Awesome. Yes, I can't wait to see what comes up, certainly from that one. And then we have one from me, and that should be with the evolutionary eagle, empathic eagle.
There it is.
Okay, and if you could read that subtitle.
It is Successfully Soaring with a Higher Impact and Income Perspective as an Empathic Economicspreneur Action Planner.
Great. Okay, wonderful. So yeah, so let me get you actually to hold both of ours up. The two eagle energies there. I want to be present. Want to be present with that, because as we are talking about starting to shift, what's coming up right now is that these new heights are very expansive. And so a lot of times when we think about heights, we think of kind of in that latitudinal way, or is it longitudinal, the long way, you know, just going up and ascending, so to speak. But this type of soaring to new heights and this eagle eyes perspective and way of being is very much expansive. And so we don't want to just think about just flying upward, so to speak. It's kind of wide as is taking place. And so the reason why this is very important to really bring up at this time is because a lot of times, Gina, as you know, when we start thinking about flying, you know, soaring, or, you know, taking flight or so, our minds do go just in, we're going upward, right? We're ascending. And that pretty much is what is happening for sure. But when you think about eagles or any creature that takes flight, what do their wings have to do in order to take flight? They have to expand, don't they?
They do.
They have to break out wide, right? So as they're going up, they're stretching out. So it is the longitude, latitude type of experience in their way of beingness as they are, taking flight or ascending upward. So that's kind of how we want the mindsets to be, as Gina mentioned, in terms of exploding, you know, the expansion and exploding, is that you really do have to allow your mind to be in a completely different place, because the types of shifts that we're going to be talking about today are not your traditional shifts. And so we don't have anything planned, which we never do when we come to these particular segments. We are prepared to allow the present moment to expand and the wisdom to come forth that we can participate in and be the conduit, so to speak, to then share this experience with you. So we have the journals, we have a topic and a theme, so to speak, but we're actually not married to that topic or theme either. It's just what came up to sort of prompt this type of session to come forth. But we're going to be, you know, continuously open to the other ones that will possibly come up as well. So Gina, let's feature, on the note of soaring, let's now feature the Millionaire Monarch. It should be the one for transformational leaders. Yes. And so as we're talking about shifting the way that we soar, because a lot of times we think about soaring, eagle comes to mind, but there's the embodiment, or a bird or so, comes to mind. But butterflies soar as well. And so as we are shifting in what we're doing, we have to think about different aspects of soaring. And so butterfly coming up and being in this more expansive energy in terms of, in this case, it's talking about a millionaire experience. And for those who are empathic, within the encoding of a new definition, empath actually is a multi-millionaire monarch experience that then goes on into different dimensions of a new higher end context. And so we don't have that particular publication present, but Gina and I have co-authored publication for the multi-millionaire monarch metamorphosis. All right, so Gina, let's also bring forth the Profitable Preneur, I believe that's it. Okay, yeah, so harnessing your empathic, profitable preneur power. So we know about the mythical bird, the phoenix, and certainly that is an energy that is dynamic and soars. And so that's a new way of soaring in terms of what we can wrap our minds around, so to speak. So we're going to allow this space to be what it is today so that these different shifting dynamics can come into place. So I'm going to invite everyone to take 3 nice deep breaths, please. Okay. All right. So Gina, I want to be present with you for just a moment. I'm going to get you actually to take 5 deep breaths. And on the 5th breath, I want you to hold it for about 5 seconds. And then afterwards, whatever pops into your mind, I would love for you to share it, please. Thank you.
The first thing that pops into my head is that as you soar, so your perspective changes. Your perspective becomes far more expansive. Instead of seeing the little bit of ground where you're standing and just the peripheral capacity that you have, the higher you soar, the wider and the greater the opportunity to see things differently. The second thing that springs to mind is if you think about each bird or butterfly or any flying living thing has its maximum height. It has a field beyond which it cannot soar because it's not designed to do that. And I think that many people get stuck because they believe in a particular, that they have a limit, a ceiling limit of how high they can soar. But the reality is that the only thing that limits us is us.
Right.
Whether you are seeing things from a pigeon's eye view, for example, or an eagle's eye view, it's going to be very different.
Right.
And it's up to you whether you want to be a pigeon or an eagle, and whether actually you want to go beyond where an eagle can see.
Absolutely.
And so for me, it's the expansive of the perspective that you get the higher you go. It broadens out and you see life and yourself and your purpose in a very different way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And to recognize that actually we're very good at putting ceilings in place, we human beings. And it's time to recognize that they're false ceilings.
Right.
Actually, if you let go of the old conditioning, the old thinking, and you could break through that ceiling, and then the next and the next, and the expansion and the height that you can reach is going to be down to how much you're prepared to do the inner work and to let go of the old stuff.
Absolutely. That was perfectly stated. And doing the inner work, and as we are, featuring intentional journals, which are the platform for, or the best medium, I should say, for being able to do that type of inner work, with pure intention. And I love what you brought up in terms of the different levels. And I actually talk a lot about this as well, that there are the different perspectives for sure, and the different levels in which a creature so can soar. And so when we think about a butterfly certainly cannot soar as high as an eagle, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And then we think about an eagle certainly cannot soar as high or even in the same format as a phoenix.
Yeah.
So the phoenix energy is really the energy to be making more of the higher shift. And the reason for that, because if you think about it, it is known to be a mythical bird, right?
Yes.
So if it's a mythical bird, then that means that there are no limits with that particular creature. So when we have that particular mindset that there are no limits, when you can be something that is beyond the human understanding or comprehension, or just the literal experience, in terms of, this human experience, but also with the animal kingdom, as well, because it expands beyond that. And so sometimes, we have to embody that level of understanding so that we don't feel limited in terms of how high we can go. And so you brought up around, perspectives, and the publication that you and I co-authored together, the Evolutionary Empathic Eagle, talks about perspectives. But before we actually go to that particular publication, let's be present with Soaring to New Heights, because I know that the other publications are mainly talking about, kind of the profitable aspect, the financial aspect, and everything. But let's start with Soaring to New Heights. And then if there's another publication that you have, actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and feature all of the other empathic publications that we have present, with us today. So we can start with yours, and should have your Are You an Empath? Is that the one? So you can give us the title and the subtitle, please.
So, Are You an Empath? Discovering Your True Identity and Purpose, an intentional workbook to explore who you really are and the significance of that role as we move into the new era of consciousness. And that's for people who are, see themselves as very sensitive, but not quite sure if they're an empath. And it's for to give people an understanding if they're an empath, and to also start to develop as an empath.
Excellent. Thank you. And so the next one would be harnessing. Harnessing the power of being an empath. And let us have that subtitle too, please.
So that's a self-exploration and empathic empowerment guide for tapping into your limitless potential. And it's looking at how so many empaths are held back by their limiting beliefs, their old baggage, and really recognizing as an empath how you can harness your power rather than find yourself in a straitjacket that's playing small.
Well stated. Definitely. And then we have stepping into, is it your genuine power?
Yeah, stepping into genuine power as an empath.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a 30-day intensive bootcamp workbook to expand and accelerate your journey as an empath. And that's really doing an audit of where you are now, taking you from where you recognize all your old habits and baggage, and looking at how you can move that forward, and through intentional journaling, move you forward.
Definitely. Excellent resource for sure. Okay, and then we have another audit, so to speak, the Accelerate.
Would you believe it? That's not in the pile. There, not good. Sorry about that. I picked up the wrong thing. But Accelerate Your Empathic Potential takes you to the next step. These are designed, each one's designed to build on the other and to give you an opportunity to really recognize your strengths, but also those ways of being that are limiting you, because ultimately the thing that's going to limit you most in life is you. You can blame everything else, you can blame all the externals, but ultimately, until you take radical responsibility for yourself and recognize that you have the most amazing power, if you choose to use it, then when you do that, then the sky is the limit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And so then you should have another one, and that is the Sharing Your Empathic Journey the Right WRITE way.
And that's looking at the power of utilizing your own experience and sharing it with other people through simple publications. And for me, there's two very distinct strands to that. The first is that you are providing other people with a resource that they can use. They can, you think about how often in life you wish you'd known a different way. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. These books are a way of sharing hindsight to help other people navigate their way more easily. What I've found, and I have to say that writing in this, I was already a published author, I'd published many books, but it wasn't until I started working with AliNICOLE that she shared with me the power of writing books in this way. And what was interesting for me is not only am I creating a resource for people who are at that level, they are on that place on their journey. So then you can move on to do other things and help people who are further along their journey. But in the very writing of them and thinking what would be helpful to people, that also expands your thinking and deepens your development. So really, really powerful. And then the last in the series is the Soaring to New Heights as an empath. And that's really, when you've dealt with all of this stuff and you really are ready to move into your higher power, then that helps you to take things to the next level.
Absolutely. And we're going to be present with that in just a moment. So you can go ahead and share the other empathic publications that you have of mine there.
So the new high-end Empathic Leaderpreneur Acceleration Factor, and that's an introduction to discovering your higher call to service as a leading empathic influencer. And that's a VIP day acceleration workspace planner.
Great. And we co-authored that one. Yes.
We did.
And then we should have the empathic, the Red Root Riches.
Yep. So then the Red Root Riches for empathic entrepreneurs, the basics of new dimensional root chakra healing for grounding your financial success and more. It's a journal prompts planner.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right. So just wanted to feature those. And of course we have others, but those are the, the main ones, since we're really kind of focusing on the empathic strand during this time. And actually, you know what, before we get present with Soaring to New Heights, I want to actually bring up how this session came about. So Gina and I, in one of the other segments that we were doing, two books hit themselves, so to speak. And her Soaring to New Heights was one of those. And then also the Millionaire Monarch metamorphosis factor was the other.
Those two.
And so, yeah, so those two, right. And we're going to be present actually, you know, with both of those for sure, to kind of jumpstart things. And so I knew that, because it seemed like it actually happened more than once or so. It was something around that. And I knew that we were going to have to definitely do something in terms of that, because they were communicating to me because they were coming up, but they weren't present. And so it's actually good that this has happened, because we actually then get to share this from a higher vantage point, now that we actually know that the topic at hand, in a sense, was about really shifting how you soar and being able to move people into a newer dimension in terms of, you know, what that means of taking flight, you know, during this time. And so here we are, after going through, you know, a couple of those types of scenarios, you know, to be able to, and we knew that we were going to do a segment around the soaring, but with those two particular publications, but did not actually know kind of the premise and topic that it would be. And now that has emerged. So, Gina, before we allow the publication, so to speak, to give us some wisdom and insight, is there anything that you want to lead in with, you know, just in terms of the empathic journey, or would you like to go ahead and be present with Soaring to New Heights?
I think just be present with Soaring. I'm assuming if you're watching this and you recognize that you're an empath and recognize that you are here for a divine purpose, then it is time, as I said earlier, it is time to let go of those limitations and allow yourself to enter into the energy of this.
Yes.
In a free way. Get your preconceptions, forget all of those things that you have believed about being an empath, and just allow yourself to engage.
Absolutely. Okay, great. All right. So actually hold the Soaring to New Heights up for me, and then I'm going to have you to get present with it. Bring it a little bit closer here. So something that is coming up just in terms of me even looking at the cover and being present with it is that we see only just a fraction of the eagle, right?
Yep.
And we see more of the open sky. And what's coming up at this time is that it's about really being one with this open sky, and not so much even focusing on the format in which we rise and soar, but being one in the expansion. And that within itself is new heights of thinking and understanding to embody a new way of beingness. And so that just came up, you know, just now. So, okay. So Gina, I'm going to have you to be present, you know, with that. And then as you are guided, you share what comes up, and then we'll see how we go from here.
The first thing that comes up is the recognition that it's vital to move with the energy, to avoid being stuck in what was, and to maintain forward momentum.
Wow, that's interesting that that came up, for the simple fact that, you know, leading into you being present, you mentioned about everyone being in the flow of the energy, being present with the energy. And then you come really talking about that. So could you read that again, please?
The recognition that it's vital to move with the energy, to avoid being stuck in what was, and to maintain forward momentum.
Yes, that is very, very important. And the maintaining aspect is even more vital, because without the maintenance, there can't be the higher expansion or ascension that can be sustainable. And so being able to be present and go with the flow and move with the energy, this is really about the newer energy and the higher vantage point as it relates to, the context of that energy. That's why the publication within itself is about soaring to new heights. And it is also, kind of referencing in the sense that individuals have already had some level of soaring, but now it's time to take on the newer expansion, to soar to new heights, to greater heights. And as we are present in this experience today, we're talking about being able to shift how you're soaring. And the reason why this is important, because a lot of times what we have developed and what we think we're about to launch into, sometimes there's a little plot twist that comes. And we have to be open that the path could actually take you somewhere different. And we have to be very mindful about that, is that everything that you've done up until this point has been the journey for sure, but now there's a greater expansion, and the new height may be calling forth for you to participate in this launching of this newest version of yourself in a very different way. And so that's why, as we are present today, you'll see a lot of the publications are going to be really talking about deeper calling, but from this high-end vantage point, and the economic standpoint, the financial standpoint. Let me share why this is very important, and especially as it relates to empaths who typically, when not in the new definition format, have really struggled financially and put a lot of limitations, around serving and charging for their services and feeling worthy enough, to receive. And if they can't even feel worthy enough to receive on kind of a basic level, then they certainly won't be able to embrace this higher end perspective, which empaths, as Queen Gina, that what I've taught in terms of the unique encoding is that empaths are hardwired for higher level service and high-end work, and bringing forth these greater financial and economic templates to help really reshape the whole trajectory of the human experience as it relates to thriving. And so when we have these powerful beings who will not embrace who they truly are and dive into this deeper aspect to the core of their soul to know their truth, then we wonder why the world is still in the position that it is, when the most powerful beings that are here to really lead the way are very much locked in their own self-created prisons, so to speak. And so we want the cage bird, in a sense, to come forth, to be able to soar. And again, this isn't saying that soaring hasn't been taking place, but what we do know is just been on a very basic level and has not even scratched the surface compared to what the true potential is. So Gina, before we move forward to be present with some of the other journals and everything, would you like to speak to any of that context?
I think it's so important that you recognize that when you allow yourself to be truly who you are, that there is more magic than you can ever imagine. I was drawn to this paragraph, and I think it fits.
Oh, go ahead.
Without a genuine alignment with yourself and with source, there is significant disconnect. Living a life of love and joy, and from a place of wholeness and alignment with source, will allow you to harness and ride the wave of sustained success. Each success is created because being aligned with source and owning your genuine power results in your magnifying and radiating a vibration which has the capacity to attract those who are ready to receive and act on your help. It facilitates success with ease and grace. And I think many of the empaths that I've worked with they talk about having a connection with source and trusting in an abundant universe, and they preach it to other people without truly embodying it and believing it themselves.
Right.
And to soar, developing that close connection with your inner wisdom and source, I think, is really important.
Absolutely, yes, because without that, it's like the body without life in it.
Yeah. You use a really great metaphor, which I think is incredibly powerful. And it's like having a vacuum cleaner that isn't plugged in and switched on. It's still a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, it's a
vacuum, but it
vacuum.
doesn't do anything until it is switched into the source of the energy. And I think
absolutely
that's a brilliant metaphor.
Oh, thank you. And actually, Abraham Hicks actually uses that metaphor, quite often, with the toaster and also the vacuum, as well. And it's really vital, because if we are not plugged into the source connection, then we can't do anything.
Yeah.
And so there's a wonder why, again, things are the way they are in the world, when ultimately a great majority of humanity isn't plugged in, and at least to the new source connection. And then we bring it back to the empaths, the ones who are actually here to be leading the way in this newer, higher state of existence. And yet they don't even understand the fundamentals of being a new definition empath. And so living less than the potential and understanding source to a certain extent, but not being one with source, and allowing that source encoding to come forth so that they are the higher demonstrators, and moving forward in what's going to be required for services in this world is that higher levels of resourcefulness in uncommon ways, and also in financial ways, are going to be really required. And that's why empaths are here to do that higher end work and that higher end service. And so moving into this newer understanding for most of them is the significant shift that needs to take place in how they shift and how they're going to soar. Because though they may be preparing for certain life purposes and to have these different levels of services, no matter what the particular industry is that they plan to be a part of, but 9 times out of 10, they aren't preparing for a high-end experience. They're just preparing to just share their gifts. And sometimes still at the expense of not charging or charging enough. And so though they've prepared, again, they're not stepping into the truer potential to really receive that which is of the divine right value exchange. And so this is the mindset shift and the way of beingness that really has to be embodied today. And so even with me saying that, that's coming up, kind of bringing up another core theme, in the sense is that the shifting is really about moving into this higher state of living, service, and the new high-end experience. So it's going to be interesting how this unfolds. But I want to bring it back really quick before we actually get present with the monarch metamorphosis aspect. And I want to be a little bit present with the Phoenix energy, because one of the processes in the new creation empath that I talk about is, well, you can bring it, you can put it down. We're not going to go there. I just wanted to be present, just in terms of just the perspective around the Phoenix here, is that, as you know, what I teach in terms of that uncommon metamorphosis, where the butterfly then becomes the eagle, and the eagle then becomes the phoenix, So once the butterfly launches from the cocoon, it doesn't actually, in this case, go off to start living the new butterfly life. It goes and gets trained by the eagle energy. And so then it's learning how to soar at these new heights that Gina's brilliant publication really talks about. But as we're shifting and ascending during this time, and I mentioned before about the embodiment from the mindset in terms of the phoenix and the limitless energy that is contained within that mythical experience, so to speak, when we play it out in a human format. And so with being present with that energy, that is, Gina, what starts to really ignite this new passion and new fire and really starts to awaken that people come to understand, whether they're empathic or not, they come to understand that these new heights and new dimensions exist, and they were not aware of these types of planes or heights of existence. And so that goes back to the shifting. Something else I want to bring up too, for those who are not, empathic or highly sensitive, so to speak. Gina and I also have another publication that is for leaderpreneurs, and it's on the harnessing your Phoenix Profitable Preneur Power, and it's for leaderpreneurs. We don't have that particular one present, but there'll be information for, for that particular one in the description. So let's go ahead and we'll cycle back around to the butterfly energy, the monarch energy. So let's be present with that, because that was one of those other ones that was hiding itself because these two publications wanted something special and set aside for them. So we're allowing those two to be the stars in a sense at this time. So Jenny, go ahead and get present with that particular publication, and then you can let us know what comes up.
What it's opened at is, it's actually one of the exercises that for me was really significant. And it talks about reverse engineer your evolution and be present with the vibration on completion of this phase. And then the question that was asked is, the transformed best version of me at this phase looks like.
The Phoenix.
And that was such a powerful exercise for me. When I'm being my Phoenix,
yes,
what does that look like? What, how does that embody itself? And it was, I journaled around that, and I think I shared that with you. And that was really powerful.
Absolutely. Yes. And see, now you can see why, even before going there, I was present with the Phoenix energy to bring that up without even going into the publication, because that is more of that reverse engineer aspect, and understanding that these new heights are going to require new ways of beingness. And that certainly is the energy that has to really be explored in a sense. And even in playing that out in the human experience is really interesting, because it becomes really adventurous. You think about it. So when we're talking about a creature or a being, so to speak, that we find its origin in a story that is a myth, supposedly, right?
Yeah.
And so you can stretch beyond the imagination and give context to that in multiple ways. Where when we're talking about a butterfly and we're talking about an eagle, again, that kind of too poses a limitation just based on, what the context is around how those particular creatures or beings operate, and the Phoenix is much more expansive, even though we know that traditionally the story is around the bird burning itself up and being able to rise anew. And the rebirth energy is so important, because as people are shifting, your shifting also represents a rebirth of understanding. And once you can have that transformation of the mind, then you can have the transformation of the beingness that will then cause you to soar in ways far beyond what you ever thought was possible. And so, so there's something else though in the monarch. So I want you to go back and be present with that, because I'm sensing that there's something else there.
I mean, so the journey is not the butterfly. The butterfly is the evolution of your metamorphosis. The process has produced a new creation and the best version of you for that phase. As you plan your next level, you'll discover your encoding extraction factor by using the intentional journal prompts provided for 3 core areas of focus, which are transforming you and evolving into your best self, creating a millionaire monarch experience, and relaunching your life and leadership anew.
Okay, wonderful. So the reason why that was really important to go back there is because the key phrase was that the journey is not the butterfly. And that is why it's very important as individuals start to launch from their human cocoons, and empaths launch from their cocoon experience or chrysalis experience, is that the way you're preparing the launch and what you think you're about to do, so to speak, that's not it. Because a lot of times people think, well, my journey has prepared me for this. I've evolved into this, and now this is the experience I'm about to live or participate in. But there's a greater height and higher context to that which you believe is the thing you're about to bring forth. There's an evolution to it, because what's developed within is not the expansion that is on the external aspect of that experience. So we don't want to get caught up in very much an old paradigm of thinking, yeah, I've prepared and I've developed as this, now I have to go out and do this. It's more so like someone who, graduated from college, but they do have an option that though they prepared for a certain field, they may be called to another one, but they still needed a degree in order to participate at a higher level, to maybe go on for a higher level degree or so, or a requirement for any type of higher level form of employment, so to speak. And so you kind of have to look at things like that, is that your journey and what you've been through or have evolved to, in a sense, is not the outcome of what is going to be outside of the cocoon. So that's why, going back to metaphorically, in terms of the butterfly comes out and then the eagle takes the butterfly, or the butterfly, prepares to become that eagle ascended type of being. And then the eagle ultimately then becomes the phoenix energy. So as you can see, you're not launching in terms of what was in the cocoon and what you were doing during that time. And not saying that you won't still do some of that, but what it's going to be is the way it's done. So this is not saying that, oh, okay, well, I've prepared for this. What do you mean I'm not going to do what I've been preparing for? You certainly will. But what will happen is it's going to take on a different formation in terms of how it happens. That's what you have to be open to, so that you can shift the way that you are soaring, and also don't participate in life in the ways that you typically have soared, even in your evolution, because this new identity, in a sense, the new best version of yourself, is going to require new action taking, new ways of being. So what Gina read in terms of, who do you have to be, and transforming into this best version of yourself. Again, what's outside of the cocoon versus what's in the cocoon makes a huge difference. Gina, I feel something swelling up in you, so I'm going to let you speak here.
Just really to endorse everything that you have said, my own experiences, and I had prepared all sorts of programs and so on. And I'm probably a lot older than a lot of people who are are listening to this and recognize that everything you've done to date has prepared you, that your skills, your experience, your perspective on life is all incredibly valuable. But if you just stay with what you know and you keep delivering just what you know from where you were, you're not going to grow.
Right.
And those things are valuable for other people and are still there and can be used. But ultimately, part of our role, I believe, as an empath is to consistently evolve and develop and expand. And if you stay focused at a vibrational level with the old stuff, that will hold you back.
Absolutely. It certainly will. And what's coming up now is the higher service and career shift that empaths need to take. That is the juncture, if you will, that they're most are at, is that a lot of them have been preparing and are ready to do some greater works for sure. But again, they would still be doing it according to kind of an older model that would still put them in that bracket of coming from kind of the same vibration that most have come from, again, as it relates to charging, and also as it relates to the type of work that they would do. When the older structure, so to speak, the nervous system of the empath is very much allergic and unaligned to those structures. And so trying to operate in a higher purpose within those older structures is just, brutal in a sense to the anatomy, for sure. So shifting in how they show up to serve and shifting in how they show up to serve, which is ultimately going to be how they show up in SOAR, right?
Yeah.
So it is time for them to make new career shifts and to understand that these next levels of their purpose, embodying their lifestyle, really entrepreneurship, leadership, mission, movement, however, is going to take on this more expansive. And for an empath, particularly, to be profitable and to be in that Phoenix energy, that takes a little bit for their minds to even embrace and embody. But that's where the adventure begins, is in that foreign territory, so to speak, and learning how to soar and making that shift in terms of what that's going to look like from the evolution of an individual. And so going back to the reverse engineering energy, when you put yourself already in the seat, having done, or now explaining to yourself in a sense what that looks like, that's part of the adventure as well. Gina, would you agree?
Certainly. And reverse engineering is such a powerful way. We all underestimate what we can do over time and overestimate what we can do in a day.
Right.
Reverse engineering helps get past that. And I think a lot of empaths get caught up in the things have got to be perfect and they've got to be a particular way, and so end up doing very little. Whereas if you reverse engineer, then your starting point already is expanded.
Absolutely. And then that trajectory then starts to fill in. So it's interesting that the acceleration publication is not present, because I feel that energy very strong. So I was like, is it asking for a separate something too? Because
it could be. I thought it was there, but it is for some reason.
But what it is this. It's actually good that it's not here. And there's a trigger here, because now what's also coming up is this is not just about shifting in terms of, shifting how we soar, but it also too is shifting how we accelerate, because the acceleration comes really before and after, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because when you start building up the acceleration for this new soaring momentum, once you soar to new heights, you're going to accelerate. So the soaring is like sandwiched in the middle of the success, in a sense. It's acceleration on,
Yeah.
it's sandwiched within that acceleration, energy, which is basically indicating at this point that there needs to be new ways to accelerate. So let's talk about this, Gina, for a moment. Let's be present with the new ways to accelerate, because the new ways to accelerate also, again, give more insight to the shifts that others need to make. So you have the empath publications, even outside the primary ones that we're featuring, today. So be present with the publications that are around, not just the empathic ones, but also any other ones. But I do feel that certainly an empathic one will come up for sure, but it may be that another companion comes up. So interesting. That's the one that, okay. All right. So that's the one that came up. And I felt that we actually needed to actually go into whatever comes up, even before we go into the evolutionary aspect, because this is building the momentum. And that is actually the acceleration publication, isn't it? The one from me.
Indeed, yes.
From us that oh, okay, interesting. Yes, great. So we do have an acceleration. So
We
that's
do. Yeah.
so that's the acceleration energy I was feeling then. Okay, so be present with that. Actually, bring that up for me, please. Let me okay, so let me get you to back it up just a little bit. And there we go. Right there. So give me just a moment here, because there's a newer context and energy to the high end aspect, the higher call to service. Give me just a moment here. So the higher call to service, opening up new profitable ways of changing the world. That's what's kind of coming up here. Okay, and that's going to be in an accelerated way. So, right, so you go ahead and get present with that particular one. Or it may be the energy of the publication that
I think
gives you
it's the actual energy of it. In fact, I'm called to the back. There's a higher calling during this time for empaths to take their rightful position to serve the masses in a variety of ways through creative expression that's carried out through high-end services. It's time to accelerate this higher calling and make a difference in the world, and again, especially in the new era business marketplace.
Absolutely. So how perfect is that? Because as you brought it up and I mentioned, that there was something around this newer context to the higher end aspect, and then the service, and it had to do with, it had to do with making a change in the world.
Yeah.
And then here it is that you go to the back and read, and it's basically saying that, and of course I've published so many publications, over 300, that I certainly don't remember what is in, each of, those ones to even know that would even be there. So yeah, wow, that's that's incredible. So let's talk about this for a moment. In terms of the higher call to service, and within being present with this, because all of this is building on the big energy, but it is reverse engineering too. So which means that there potentially could be a publication of yours too that wants to come forth, that would be more of a segue into the next level of understanding that one would need. So you be present with your empathic publications, or just in any of the other ones that may come up. So I can tell you two that are coming up for me, but go ahead.
I've just opened this at the question.
Which one is it?
This is the Soaring to New Heights as
Okay, you went back. Okay, drew you back to that one. Okay.
And it says, ask yourself, are you 100% ready to unleash your limitless power as an empath? If not now, then when? If not now, what's holding you back? Are you ready to deal with anything which is holding you back and let it go? And if yes, what's your next step?
Wow. Okay, so this is even more perfect, right? So actually the two publications of yours that were coming up in awareness for me was the stepping into your genuine power as an empath, and then also the sharing.
Sharing?
Yeah, you know, the right way.
Sharing your empathic the right way.
Yeah.
So there we are, that's that one.
And then, okay, right. And the reason why these are so important right now, even on the hinge of what you just said, is that it takes this next level of not just courage or courageousness, so to speak, but they have to really step into this newer level. So you think about anytime you're going up, and this, when we're talking about stepping into, you typically think about moving forward or stepping up, so to speak. You don't think about coming downstairs. You think about stepping up, stepping into, you know, right. And so when you have the energy of both of those publications and them coming to understand their power, stepping more fully into that power in that boot camp style that you have, and then starting with writing to be able to share their message in the world, because writing, as we know, is kind of the gateway, in a sense, the key that really cranks up the vehicle for anything moving forward from there in terms of offerings, whether it's programs, products, speaking, you know, however, consulting, you know, so to speak, is that when you can bring forth the writing, you know, element, then you're able to reach so many more people. And it just takes on, as you know, it's like I said, it's the key really that cranks everything up. So what I want you to do is bring those two publications together for yourself and be present with the energy. You may not necessarily be guided to go into them. Maybe you are, but I don't know. But there should be something that comes up for you kind of as a cohesive theme from them both, if you're not guided to go in, or it could be all the above.
Interestingly, a title of one of the sections came up in this, which is just
Which one is it?
That's in stepping into your genuine power as an empath. Is that dispel the myth that shifting your thinking has to take lots of time. And
that's that acceleration, isn't it?
Absolutely. But so many people require tangible proof of something, but this is an act of faith, in a sense. It's a Damascus Road situation. So that was the thing that really that struck me there. But actually, in both books, they talk about how sharing your journey with other people is powerful beyond measure. Powerful for the other person, but also powerful as in the writing that also accelerates your understanding and your expansion.
Absolutely. And it actually helps to shift the way that they share. And the reason for that, they need to get it out in the writing first, because what I teach even in the speaking and writing metamorphosis or communication metamorphosis, and you know, my core theme for that is write for caterpillars, speak to butterflies. So you write the journey, you write the gap, what someone else needs in terms of what your journey provided. But by the time you have released that from you and you're in more of your butterfly format and not in the journey too, you've gone on to speak and to do other things, even in your higher ways of service. And that's why it's so important to understand that there's a shifting that's occurring. And you have to shift the way that you soar so that you don't come out of the cocoon sharing the journey you've emerged from and thinking that that's the audience that you're here to serve from what you do kind of in your new mission day to day. No, your publication is what is going to give them your journey. And so that's another shifting point and another acceleration and understanding is that you can accelerate into what the higher calling is, which is going to be the more newer higher calling. But the writing element in terms of what the journey has been is what Gina read from the Monarch, is that the journey is not the butterfly. So the journey is not the butterfly. So if the journey is not the butterfly, that means that the journey is not what is to be communicated and articulated chronically or consistently in terms of a new way of a mission. That's again where the writing comes in to be able to deliver that format. But then also then there's the next evolution of the writing too, where you do produce content that is relevant to the now and how you're going to serve. So the VIP workspace planner that Gina had brought up is a great example because it provides a space or an experience for people to be able to customize a journey that's going to be really relevant to their right now scenario of being really outside of what would be more of a metamorphosis aspect. So it's more of an after a person has evolved to a certain extent, an empath has evolved, and now wanting to accelerate who they are as an influencer and do it at this higher, high end, level. So all of this, wow, is very vital in terms of making these critical shifts in thinking and understanding and perspective. On the note of perspective, so let's bring up the empath.
Before we do, one of the things that I think for me was so powerful about this as a process is to recognize that you make a shift and then your language has to match the shift.
Right.
And it's very easy to find you're tethered back to the old because of the language patterns that you're using. And one of the things that the benefits that using the writing has given me certainly is to be able to recognize the patterns of language that shift, that fit what I'm doing. And in doing so, start to recognize the new patterns of language that support the new shift. And absolutely. That iteration gets repeated time after time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, because something I want to bring up too, even as it relates to your journey. And I'm sure that you definitely have the grander awareness of this now, can attest to it and speak to this, is that, when you start discovering that you could serve the empathic strand, based on your experiences. But where you are today, don't you feel like you are at a significant shift from what you felt that you would do in service for empaths, and now that you have published several publications and facilitated even some of the newer context in some regards, but even with that, don't you feel like, well, you're at a significant shift of how you would even serve that community from a physical standpoint? When I say a physical standpoint, meaning you have your publications, you have the different platforms, but what you would give your time and attention to in terms of working with an empath at this level, I'm sure is completely different than what the preparation has, been.
Yeah. It's like comparing an ant with an elephant, really.
Absolutely. It's a great example. That's a great analogy. It really is. And that
is in their way very strong, and both in their way amazing creatures, but everything, their physiology, their thinking, their energy, everything is different.
It's completely different.
And I think it's worth saying that you know, over the years I had worked with a lot of empaths, but I didn't see that. It happened that they came for something else and they were an empath. They didn't come to me because they were an empath.
Because they were an empath, right?
And yet the work I did with them was helping them develop their themselves empathically. And it was only through facilitating a work training
masterclass
that I suddenly saw that actually that I had been working with them. But now what I'm able to offer, because I'm in such a different place,
absolutely,
I can offer them an accelerated and a deeper and more expanded journey than I ever could before, because I have expanded and deepened my experience.
Indeed.
And I think, you know, in part that's been because working with you, but also writing has supported and facilitated that shift.
Yes,
and writing in this very particular way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sharing your empathic experience, right?
Absolutely.
The right WRITE way, definitely. Okay, great. So let's bring up the evolutionary empathic eagle. Or let me see, give me the title.
The evolutionary empathic eagle's new high-end vantage point, successfully soaring with a higher impact and income perspective as an empathic economics-preneur action planner.
Okay, so hold that up for me before you get present with that. So what I want you to do, Gina, is actually look at that eagle and tell me what you see.
I see a bird of huge power. They have the capacity to see, from a height of huge height, they can see a rabbit on the prairie and go for it. They are the top of the food chain.
Yes, they are.
They have the capacity to view the world and to then pinpoint and hone down at tremendous speed.
Right.
And then to soar. And then the other thing that I think that eagles are amazing, that once they reach a height, they don't effort, they use the thermals.
They do, absolutely. So look at him, particularly, just look at this particular eagle. Because even just how he's looking, almost with a side view in a sense. So you think about when we look head on at a goal or a destination, but when we're being called to shift the way we soar. So let's imagine that we're already in flight in a sense, and now being asked to go to the left or to the right instead of straight. So though soaring already is shifting the way that it's being done. Yeah. And from a financial and economics vantage point, because this particular one's about the new high-end, high-end vantage point, and marrying that energy with the acceleration of the new high-end, acceleration vibration, empaths come to see that this is the space that you're supposed to be in. The very one that you most avoid is where you are here to make the shifts to be serving in the financial and economic, frameworks and the industries, so to speak. So that's a perspective shift and up level. So Gina, go ahead and get present with that particular publication, and or if you have anything else to say about how the eagle looks, and then after you can be present and share.
I think just going back to the eagle, they are consummately skilled at reading the weather pattern, reading the wind, reading the thermals, and finding their way with ease and grace.
Mm-hmm.
And they are, when you watch them in the sky, they are so graceful.
Oh, absolutely.
And
They are, definitely. But what about him? I want you to be present with that particular eagle there. And even though you're speaking collectively of the eagle energy embodiment, which, you know, that eagle would carry that too. But there's something there.
this is a mature eagle, an
Mhm.
eagle who is the king, who
Yes.
commands his territory, who
Mhm.
he knows himself, he knows within within an inch the whole of his territory, and he knows where he is within that and can navigate
Absolutely.
that.
Mm.
Such power and grace.
Yes, and that translates to who we're supposed to be being in that state of authority.
Yeah.
And awareness. Yes, and beingness. And that's what empaths are here to bring forth.
Yeah.
And anything less than that is a false identity, is a false template being lived. And so this higher perspective and understanding, as you mentioned, maturity, that's where the evolution comes in. That's why that publication is the evolutionary, you know, because it's not enough just to be an empath or even be an empowered empath. You have to be an evolutionary empath who is really operating in this new now energy. Because without that level of participation in life, again, there's a false template that's being lived. And ultimately, one will not reach their greater potential and continue to go around and loop around the circles of what is successful to a certain extent and then what is not successful, you know, without catapulting into this newer, you know, trajectory of beingness. So I'll allow you to be present with that.
So what's jumping out is the world at large and the economics framework in particular are constantly evolving. However, they aren't always evolving in the right ways. Because empaths are accelerated evolutionary expressions, they're able to use their keen awareness, divine intuitive empathic abilities, and high sensitivity to advise, consult, and so much more to make sure the economics evolutionary process is one of accurate growth. In order to do so, empaths like eagles must be able to see from a higher vantage point for solutions to take others to higher heights and demonstrate for them how not only to fly, but successfully soar.
Wow. That's loaded.
Yeah.
That's pretty loaded. Wow. Wow. So from that, because you're present with the energy there and reading that, what is coming up for you, you know, from that you think would be extremely valuable to share in this shifting of the perspective?
I think there's a number of things. First and foremost, the activity and the thinking that got us to this place isn't going to be the thinking and the activity that gets us out of the trouble that we're in.
Or just going to another level.
Yeah. And so empaths have the capacity to tune into, you know, it talks about keen awareness, divine intuitive empathic abilities, high sensitivity. So they've got the capacity to read the situation, just like the eagle can read the wind and the thermals and so on.
Right.
But then they also have the capacity to and sensitivity to advise, consult, and so much more. So it's the two sides, if you like. It's only doing half the job if you're aware and you're reading the situation. You've then got to do something with it,
right,
to help people to move on and to change. And I think, you know, for many people that perhaps they have the awareness to some extent, but you know, how as empaths are you ready, prepared through the shift, and then how are you going to use that preparedness to help other people? And if you're
Right.
playing small, it's never going to work. So this is about being, putting a big girl or boy knickers on and, getting ready.
Right. And being in that
for
higher end
the
space.
yeah.
Right. In serving in this higher end trajectory. And that is a significant shift, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's why the publications that have been co-authored, by us, and then the ones that, I have, my work is in terms of the higher end, empath, the new higher end empath in the new definition format. And so understanding that these new heights are in the new high end space. And that's the work that empaths are here to do. And again, that is the significant shift and the significant acceleration that has to take place. That you're not going into service, it's business as usual, or even what maybe you prepared. There's another dimension in terms of what you're here to operate on that plane or on that level or in that realm, so to speak. But it is going to take stepping out of all of the knowns and even the great current success in a sense, and now stepping into what would feel like or be presented as the foreign territory. So that's where we go even beyond the eagle's vantage point. And then now we shift into the Phoenix energy. You can bring that publication up. Thank you. Okay, so being one with the flame, that's what's just jumping out to me, just in energy, vibrationally. And actually, let me get you to bring your harnessing the power up with this one.
What have I done with it? Hold on. I've got so many books around here.
Yeah.
We're all in piles, and as we bond, there we are.
Yes. So bring that one up with the Phoenix energy here. And what's interesting is that, the Phoenix energy get you to hold them up a little bit more.
Probably once I've held them up, I can't see what I'm doing. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So we know that the Phoenix energy is representing really beyond the evolution. That's where one can optimize my core fundamentals of metamorphosize, evolutionize, and then ultimately optimize the experience. And what's interesting is that with your publication, in terms of that the fire and the light bulb, the electricity, all of this is about illumination. And so it's illumination for the beginner who is starting to harness the power, but them already seeing this is where it's leading. So once they harness the power and go through the journey of acceleration, especially through the publications you're providing, then they already know here's where they're landing. Eagle's landing, so to speak, but really in the Phoenix format is, one level of harnessing the power of being an empath, and then the next level from the evolution or after the evolution is now harnessing your empathic, profitable Phoenixpreneur power. And again, this is all about the higher service. So it goes back to the career shift energy. So Gina, be present with the profitable Phoenixpreneur, and then you can share from that. And then I want you to be present with both of those just from an energetic perspective, and also share, what comes up.
Right. So what comes up in the harnessing your empathic, profitable Phoenixpreneur power is, as you rise in new levels of responsibility to your power in order to be profitable, you'll discover that as an empathicpreneur, you have superpowers that are far beyond your current perception or wildest imagination. You are not only an empath and an entrepreneur, you're a Phoenixpreneur. You have the ability to powerfully rise out of your own ashes, like the mythical bird, the phoenix, is an innate superpower that you possess as an empath and also as an entrepreneur.
Wonderful. So for those empaths who are not entrepreneurs, need to understand that that is the significant shift in path, is whether you are a leader, whatever your gifting is, will be leveraged in the way of entrepreneurship in some way. And that is the higher end, at least the entry point into the higher end perspective.
Yeah.
That's why all of the publications from the beyond the cocoon aspect, if you will, in this new higher end context, you know, this is all about, that higher level of service. And so also too, what's coming up, to bring forth the empathic, the red root chakra. There's something around the financial well-being that's coming up for me, but I'll allow you to be present with that particular publication, because whatever comes up for you, it doesn't have to be around that, but whatever comes up for you, share it. I'll be able to somehow tie it in with the financial wellness piece.
Our financial core energy is housed in our root chakra and must be healthy in order to achieve and/or sustain financial success. Most empaths often struggle with finances due to an unhealthy root chakra. This causes discord and inharmonious activity with the rest of the chakras. In order to restore harmony and new balance, empaths must learn how to use non-traditional approaches to chakra healing and enter into new dimensions of the chakras.
And we were talking about these newer dimensions, weren't we? And the thing about the financial wellness piece, from a mental perspective too, is that getting to the root of the higher understanding is what's most important. And the shifts, again, that we're helping empaths to make in perception, in mindset and way of being is that this is the next level of the embodiment of a calling. And again, this serves non-empaths as well.
Yeah.
But empaths, it's more vital for them to embrace and operate from this newer context that we are bringing forth today. Would you agree, Gina?
Absolutely. I mean, the principles that we're talking about are the principles for living a full life. But I was drawn to something, if I can just remember which book it's in. Those who embrace their empathic talents and step fully into their power have the capacity to do great things in the world. The only limitation is that which they impose on themselves through self-doubt and limiting beliefs. You're designed to be successful, to attract abundance, and to create high levels of profitability. It's time to get out of your own way. Let go of the old beliefs and habits which are keeping you playing small, so you can rise like a phoenix and fly.
Magnificent. And what publication was that from?
That was from Harnessing Your Empath.
Okay, our publication. Okay, all right, wonderful. So, so on the note of this higher shifting, based on what you just read as well, so is there a publication that's coming up? And it doesn't necessarily have to be from the empathic strand or so, it could be, but okay, there we go. So that's a different level of the metamorphosis energy. Okay, wonderful. All right. So okay, so give the subtitle of that one and then you be present with it.
It's the Millionaire Metamorphosis Factor, an intentional journal prompts planner for evolving and launching from your millionaire cocoon.
Yes, so back in the reverse engineer energy, and being at that point of launching from, but discovering what comes out of the cocoon, so to speak. All right. So be present with that, whether the vibration or energy or so, or whether you're guided to look into it.
It's really interesting because before, when we've worked together, I've always been drawn to the inside of the book.
And you're being more drawn to the back, right?
I am, and I just want to read you this excerpt.
Mhm.
Isn't it interesting how often those things which appear simple and understated can have the most profound effect on your thinking and
Mhm.
expand your horizons exponentially? This book is a perfect example of that. When I first looked at the book, but before I actually read the book and engaged with the process, my first thought was how big the theme was and how short the introduction was.
Mhm.
Little did I realize how potent the content would be and how powerful the questions were to prove in my own evolution and expansion. This is all about transforming and evolving into the best version of yourself as you extract your encoding to launch your life anew from your millionaire cocoon.
Wow. So that's loaded. And those are your words,
They're
actually.
my words, yeah. They're my words.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so, with that, what is coming up for you in terms of, this launching energy, to soar in a very different way, or just anything around that? What is coming up? Because that's a stretch in terms of understanding a millionaire trajectory, in which I mentioned that new definition empaths, their basic encoding is actually the multimillionaire energy. So, so what was coming up for you?
I think I think the distinction between lots of people think, well, how do I get to be a millionaire from here? And it is about, what does the millionaire experience look like for you?
Right.
What's your millionaire life? And it's so much broader than money.
Mhm.
But I think something that I think is worth me sharing with people is, and it was between not the last publication, which is just about to be published, but actually the previous publication, which was around profitability,
Mhm.
how easy it is to avoid facing the issue around money,
Right.
talking about money.
Mhm.
And in order to feel comfortable with that, you have to imagine what it was like and start to language it and start to live
Right.
with it as if it is,
Mhm.
rather than something that's so far into the distance that it's never
Absolutely.
real.
Right. Right. That was so well stated.
It's
Definitely.
powerful stuff. And I think, people who perhaps are new to this, and if you're sitting there watching or listening to this and thinking, yeah, but that's not for me,
Or
I
it's too simple, right? No.
I would say to you, don't knock it till you try it.
That's
Um,
right.
but ultimately, the more you are prepared to let go, and the image that keeps coming into my head is that of the story of James and the Giant Peach.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's interesting that you said it's so interesting
There's
that you
a
said
part of
that.
the story where the peach is has lots and lots of ropes,
Yes.
and I think there's seagulls, if I remember rightly,
Mhm.
holding down those ropes and holding the peach down. And
Mhm.
then suddenly, I can't remember the story, but suddenly the peach rises into the air rather
Right.
like a hot air balloon.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think so many people are the peach that are being held down by the ropes and the
Right.
seagulls, and they've just
Mhm.
got to believe in themselves and in the process, and they will find that they float, and that begins to then, having floated away from the constraints, then you'll start to soar.
That's right. Oh, that was excellent. And it's so interesting that you brought that up, because I actually use that metaphorically in some of my other writings too. But just the other day, that was coming to my mind in terms of James and the Giant Peach. And it's interesting because at the time I didn't know why. And I guess it was just kind of a precursor that it was setting up for,
Yeah.
for now. And I think you beautifully explained that perfect analogy. And I'm glad that that imagery came up, for you, as a reminder to, those different contexts. And definitely we can rise when we jettison some weight, right?
Yeah.
And the thing about it is then when people stop holding on to the cocoon and sometimes the comforts of the cocoon and allow themselves to launch, but in this bigger way, and prepare to soar far beyond what the imagination can even think, and far beyond what one would have even had planned. And so that's the thing about, there's these different levels of us that are already in flight and soaring and needing to make the subtle shifts. Then there are those elements that have still been cocooning for quite some time, but now ready to come forth, but now understanding that as you come forth, it will not be in the traditional formats, and you have to allow that to be the grander, expression that comes forth. So, so on that note, is there another publication from any of your other pals, or even the ones that we have, or are you feeling that we can bring this to maybe a powerful conclusion in summarization?
I get the feeling that actually we've come to a really good place to conclude.
Yes. Okay.
That feels right.
Yes, and it does feel right, to me as well. Is that I believe that there was enough of the context to provide the levels of shifting that need to take place in awareness, mindset, perception, and beingness, and helping the empath to understand that the calls to service are going to have the entrepreneurial aspect to it, whether it is the leadership aspect, even if you're a healer or whatever, it is going to have the entrepreneurial aspect to it. And it will be in the new high-end, I don't even say container, but context. And so that's the thing, is understanding you are here to come into these higher levels of service. But what we do know also out in the market is that even the empathic work that is out there is not really pointing empaths to those paths to be in the more higher end aspect, financial and economics, frameworks, even as they do consulting or healing or however. And so the work that Gina and I do together, but also the publications that are provided, are the perfect setup in terms of, and expansion, because it sets you up, but yet gives you really the complete journey in a sense. Because if you look at the publications that have been provided, no matter what the level is, it already has the complete journey. So if someone started with, are you an empath? Or even harnessing your power of being an empath, already understanding that this journey leads to be the phoenix. So the journey is already, you look at what's been provided, it gives, that is the journey. But what it is that once you come from the cocoon, and then the ego aspect, and then the phoenix is really kind of the ultimate premise at this point for the highest level of evolution. It does go beyond that, but that is really where most will land if they get to that point. So as you go through the journey of discovering whether you're an empath or so, or even if you are and you're harnessing more of the power, or you're at the level where you need to step more into your genuine, authentic expression in terms of being an empath, and then being able to accelerate that process so that you know why you're really here and what your contributions are. And then being able to start using your experience of the journey and then publicizing that, okay? Making publications, or so writing that and bringing that to the world. And then you can go on to soar to new heights in this higher context of why you're here. Then as you're soaring to new heights, then you come to understand that there is another level of metamorphosis that has taken place. And once you then ultimately come from that cocoon experience, then that is when you go on to be this evolutionized empath that can serve at the higher levels in this new higher end way. And then that's an accelerated journey for who you are as an influencer and making this greater impact. Then from there, you learn how to take that to the next level and shift in your soaring and come more into that Phoenix energy, and then start being able to share from that way of beingness and create. And what's interesting is that the publication that we have present, the Phoenix one, read that subtitle because that one is about creating a mini course, I believe.
Rising in new levels of your entrepreneurial empowerment and profit potential for high-end success. It's a customized mini course creation planner.
Yes. So can you imagine, Gina, that when people come through these experiences and they've already created different publications and different works, but then when they come into this Phoenix experience and now creating their own customized course for themselves, and then the publication actually invites them then to turn around and share and create a course for an audience. So imagine the work being created from the right way and giving that to the world in that context, then coming into this Phoenix energy and then providing something that within itself is mind-blowing in terms of what that evolution would be. For sure, definitely.
I think it's amazing that you are, not only are you serving yourself in the sense that you're developing and providing a service for other people, but you're creating a legacy, a living legacy that it's not just the next band of people who are perhaps you're serving now, but that's going to have resonance and be relevant to people coming long after.
Right.
And there will always be people who are at that level who need a step up to help them develop. But by that time you're serving those people who are ready to follow you on your next stage of your journey. So it's a constant evolution, but in doing so it's like leaving a trail of things that are of value to other people. It's your expression is the gift that keeps giving, and you can use it in a whole variety of ways.
Oh, absolutely, definitely. And something I want to bring up as well is that you have some emerging publications, and though they're not necessarily geared towards empaths, but they are just in general in terms of, business and leadership. And so you have some new Soaring publications that will be coming out soon. Did you want to talk a little bit about those?
So my apologies, that's the phone. It is actually off the hook, but for some how it's managed to ring, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
So the first one is Soaring to New Heights as a profitable, enlightened business leader. And that was, I got the notification that was published today.
Yay!
So that's really great. But the one which is about to tomorrow, it'll go off to be it's formatted and waiting the draft to come, and that's Soaring to New Heights as a profitable business leader, and it's really looking very specifically at people's attitudes to money and to profitability.
Awesome. Yes. So those would be perfect, again, an empath or a non-highly sensitive, so to speak. And so I wanted to just, to bring those up because I know we've been sharing so much about the empathic journey and providing, the publications that are around the empaths, but definitely allowing others to know, but there are publications that are not necessarily geared, towards the empaths, for sure. And so, Gina, this has been nothing short of brilliant in the sense that I'm always amazed at how things unfold. But there's been something about this particular segment that has had kind of a different flow and a different connotation to it. than some of the others. And what I mean by that is like we're always getting the ahas and the amazements of how things, kind of weave in. The difference here was not so much of the whoa, 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 like a lot of the other ones have, but just the chronologicalness of it. Something about this was just kind of more expansive on a different way. And I think that there's just the shifting energy, and now helping empaths to understand that you are on a new career trajectory. And again, we're here to provide that shift. And as you can see, we have the publications, laid out, for that process from, really beginning to end in a sense, but also too, just our availability in terms of helping others to understand and having platforms and different aspects that people can level themselves up in. And Gina, you actually have, a training hub too that does facilitate some of the context for empaths, even products or so that are beyond, just the writing element. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, if you go to www.ginagardinerassociates.co.uk, there are a number of off-the-shelf video training series. In fact, just gone live today as the 5 Ps of profitability.
Nice.
But also,
how fitting is that?
Absolutely. Are you an empath? Are you an empathic business leader? Those are 2 training video trainings in the box, which I've done with another empath, Lizzie Bernthal. There are VIP intensive and workshops for empaths. There are a whole range of things on there designed if you are someone who likes the medium of video and that suits you. There may be empaths who, for example, could have dyslexia and find reading and writing a challenge. Then there are other alternatives. So go and have a look. So that's ginagardinerassociates.co.uk.
Awesome. And yes, and definitely for the non-highly sensitive, the non-empaths, there's even more for the enlightened leader journey, or just the leadership journey in general on that platform as well. So even though she's talked about, the empath one, and I wanted her, to address that, but that the empath, I would say that's kind of the smaller context on that platform, because there's so many other leadership. Yeah. And anyone can avail themselves to those, other extensions of trainings, as well. Yeah, so that, so that is just wonderful. Like I said, so what I want to get present before we wrap up, because I feel like there is a core empowerment for just everyone as a whole. And so as I'm being present with that, or it may actually come through you, in terms of some type of cohesive thing, because that's interesting, because that's what I'm getting at this point. And not that that's a new thing that occurs, because we typically do have some type of cohesive, but it feels like there's a deeper core message that is really more for the masses at this point than it is just for the empath. What are you getting, Gina? Do you get that same sense?
I think there's so much going on in the world, and it would be so many people are getting drawn into all of the strife and division. I think perhaps part of this core message is you've got to hold on to there is a way forward, that there is a way forward in the light. Whether you're a leader and being a beacon of light and hope, or holding on to that, if we work together. And I think that's one of the reasons why empaths have got such a big role to play.
Yes, right, right.
providing the light,
Mm-hmm.
providing a way forward, and acting as the beacon of light for other people to gather. Because I think many people are really struggling because everything feels so dark and heavy, and that they get caught into the illusion that that's the only reality.
Right. And that's another pivotal point to shift. And I know that we're going to be closing out, but I want to ask you, do you have present your publication, It's Time to Become a Beacon?
I've got a pile under the table.
Okay, right, because I'll get you to either read the back of that, since there's been a lot of back book reading here, or you be present, because there is something.
I haven't, but I can very quickly go and get it if you'd like me to.
I would like you to get it. There is something there, and because it came up, yeah. So as you are getting that, something else that's kind of emerging, during this time, is that when we're talking about shifting more into the light and being the light, in order to be the light, you really have to be in a very higher space than the average individual, especially someone who's here to make an impact. And to be the new light, there we go. Bring that up for me. Because you're just the vibration about, the becoming. In this journey, actually, what we've been talking about is about the different levels of becoming. And so as the development happens in terms of this unique metamorphosis of a journey, you are also ultimately becoming the light and this new expression of hope. And when we think about it, even when the whole cocoon process and the breakdown to becoming something different, that's a dark space for the caterpillar. And in the human context, that's a very dark space in a journey of becoming unformed to form into a completely different entity of expression and beingness. So if that's what's taking place, then there's the newness of what comes with that. And in the darkness, you have to become the light. That's where your light actually comes on. And that's what actually illuminates your own journey of new hope, is the light that comes from within, this new soul's illumination expression, whether being an empath or not, just the new human experience itself. And so being able to lead yourself effectively through a journey, and then also be able to champion others and be that guide for them into their newer light, turning that light on first and then coming into that higher context. Gina, read the subtitle, and then if you're guided to go somewhere or to the back of that, I think that's going to be a very, very powerful way to start to conclude.
So the subtitle is How to Become an Illuminating Enlightened Leader and Light the Way in Challenging Times. I'd just like to make the point that as an empath, you are effectively a leader, even though you might not categorize yourself as a leader.
Right.
And on the back it says, creating a sense of conscious hope is vital in times of challenge. Having hope opens up a future of possibilities as we're better resourced, more resilient and creative when we're able to trust in the future. Enlightened leaders not only live from a place of conscious hope, they have the capacity to generate a sense of unity and hope in others. History has proven time and time again the power of hope, even in the darkest of times.
Absolutely. That's right. And that right there goes back to that shifting the way that we soar.
Yeah.
And understanding that you are the embodiment of the light, but not just the light, the new light.
Yeah.
And the new hope. And being able to give that to yourself and be that for yourself. And then, yes, then be that for others, be that demonstration. And the light that needs to be illuminated right now, for real, in terms of empaths, and this may seem like, well, no, it shouldn't really be that focused, but I'm going to say it has to be. Your financial trajectory and holistic profitability and the financial profitability has to be the higher light, because in order for you to do the work that you're here to do, it's going to take that next level of resources and anchoring this whole financial, new financial context, I should say, for you to have not only just the security, but also being that new hope of economics, being that new hope of financial possibilities for individuals. Because a lot of people have abundance on so many different levels that they can appreciate and extend gratitude, consistently. But there are a lot of people who are in struggle in terms of the financial and economics. And why is this? Because they haven't made the shifts in how they're soaring. See, even the most successful companies have found themselves behind the 8 ball and struggling because they too have not discovered new ways to soar. And so when you can be an example of your own shift and then provide that demonstration for others to see, wow, there's a new way to soar in a career, a new way to soar in life, a new way to soar as yourself in this newer, higher context. But going back to the financial piece, and I know, we can wrap up, get ready to wrap up here on this, but Gina, I'm sure that you would agree that even though it may seem like money in a sense, or the financial aspect should not be the focal point, in a sense, but it's a new way in how we focus on it. But you would agree that this next level of what needs to come forth, not just from empaths, from influencers themselves, will require them to have this higher level of the financial stability.
Absolutely. And I think what many empaths do in my experience is that they focus on money, but they focus on the lack of it rather than the abundance of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that being operating in the high end level
Mm-hmm.
financially gives you the freedom to access resources that help you help more people.
Right.
It is the key that opens the door to so many other things that you can do, because you can then you can operate at such a different level.
Right.
You have the resources that you can buy in expertise and other people's time, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You have the capacity to help people in a way that when you're grubbing around trying to make ends meet, that you can't do.
Right.
And for me, the shifts it's multi-layered.
Absolutely.
And multifaceted. But for people who have listened to this, to recognize that you actually have everything that you need within you. It's finding the right key to unlock it. And that's what all of these journals are.
Absolutely.
Help you have the keys to unlock the first bolt, and then the second, and then the third. And it's a whole room, a whole mansion.
That's right.
Of rooms. And each
Absolutely. Absolutely. And each will be required.
Yeah.
And on the note of this, the greater expansion also is that empaths are also here in this new format to be employers to others. You have to have a vision and a mission that's so big and huge and expansive at this point, and the financial trajectory fills in, where you are able to facilitate financial security on another level for others, because you have a mission that's so important that others are going to be called and drawn to that mission. And you're going to have to be able to be a supplier for them. I use the term, employment, so to speak, but basically everyone's partnering together in a sense. But there are going to be people who are going to be, you don't necessarily have to say they're working for you, but they're working with you, and they're receiving their divine right exchange, for being able to do that. And so that's a grander context of something even that, I teach about in terms of being able to expand your vision where you are facilitating at that higher level. But you have to be focused on this new context of this new financial trajectory, the new high-end way, so to speak. And so that we have really definitely given some shifting some shifting vibration,
Yeah.
here. So before I have you actually give us a closeout, I'm going to invite us to take 7 deep breaths.
Okay.
Yes. All right. That 7 represents the completion energy, and we definitely um, have provided some tremendous value here. So, what I'll do, Gina, is something I just want to do, kind of what I do typically in the initial closeout. But then after I do that, then I would love for you to actually have the last, um, the last word before you go off screen or so and close us out. So something that I always say is that we've been talking about really unlocking codes. And even though I haven't used that language much during this particular segment, but that's what it really is all about. And when you do the inner work and take yourself on this journey, this deeper exploration, and allow yourself to evolve and expand into these greater heights so that you can soar, just keep in mind that fundamentally, that as you're unlocking this newer trajectory of your divine destiny, it's not going to be found in the stars or the traditional ways that people will look, for things. And it's not about it's in the cards for you. It ultimately is always going to be in the life codes. And with that, just want you to stay blessed and definitely take away what Gina and I have provided, today, and allow that to expand you so that you can soar, you can shift and now soar to greater heights. So, I'm going to allow you to actually close us out. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity before I go any further. Awareness is the first stage of anything. Unless you're aware, you can do nothing. Having comprehension of the relevance of that awareness and an understanding of how that can make a difference is the second stage. But what we're offering through this training, we're offering you the opportunity now to take action, and to take action about being a different way and supporting your capacity to make those shifts. If you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always got. It is time to be courageous, but recognize that what we've provided for you are bite-sized chunks. You haven't got to do it all in one huge mouthful, that it gives you the opportunity to make a shift, work on that, to then pick another of the journals, to work on more than one journal at a time. And different aspects of you and your development. Today, which is the thing that's drawing me? And not only is it good because it enables you to shift it in many dimensions, but also it's honing your skill to tune into what's important for you. And so there are such a plethora of opportunities here for you. We can't do it for you. The person that's going to make the difference in your life is you. All we can do is provide you with the tools and the insights. Now it's down to you. Time is of the essence. Don't hang about. Please take action. Please recognize what an amazing being you are and engage in your own development so you too can soar. Thanks very much for joining us today. Bye-bye now.